Yeah. Did you feel constrained by your title at the RTS?
Well, I felt constrained by the job
Right.
because the role in the RTS is to be aggressively impartial.
Right.
So, as chief, it's an institution which has to be utterly impartial.
Right.
I couldn't turn it into a diversity campaigning
Right.
institution, although while I was there, Lenny Henry made an important speech. We had an important article. We had some articles in the magazine which addressed the issue impartially, but I guess you can influence the topics and the writers. Yeah. So, but I was very constrained because that organization had to be aggressively impartial, and we were.
Right. And so what do you think now we're in a different place where a lot of people, some feel that too many institutions, too many chief executives are losing their impartiality and are becoming very political. What do you think of that happening in not just in media, but outside of media?
Whoa. This is a difficult question. Let me come at it at another way.
Okay.
One thing, and I know more than I've read in the press, but I've read in the press more than I know.
Okay.
More than I knew. But it was Sunday Times 2 weeks ago. The government is ignoring Ofcom's recommendations on job appointments and on contracts continuing. And ultimately, Downing Street can determine who's appointed. And I think that is happening more and more. And that is very dangerous. In terms of chief executives, now, actually, I think I have a lot of confidence in Tim Davie. I didn't want to see him made Director General. I thought after all his time in the BBC, he would have been institutionalized. But he hasn't been institutionalized. And I watch him like a hawk, everything he says. And I think he's saying the right things. I think he's trying to do the right things. Whether he'll be able to deliver, whether he'll be thwarted by the people in the organization, I don't know. But he may have been a Conservative councillor. He may have been a member of the Conservative Party. That's one thing in the post. That doesn't worry me.
Right.
But and as for the others, I don't know where they stand. I don't know anyone knows where they stand.
I think it's actually very refreshing when you know someone's political affiliations, but that they can still bring a level of professionalism, impartiality to a job, and equally speak on every issue, and equally, have a tough conversation with an individual or an institution when it's needed. And that actually, to me, is the difference between being internally ideological and being truly impartial. And what's been surprising actually for me is noticing how that is changing. You now see a lot of institutions where people have lost faith because they feel like, whether it's CNN or a lot of mainstream organizations, people feel they're not trustworthy because they know what their political affiliation is of the institution or the journalist. Do you think?
CNN is a very interesting case in point.
Right.
Because I probably have the same positions as CNN on most issues.
Yes.
And over the whole Trump business, I used to watch CNN a lot. And I used to have access to Fox News, which is no longer available free in the UK.
Yes.
And watching CNN has now become so ideological that even though I share their views, you never heard the other side.
Absolutely.
And I actually felt, why can't I see Fox? I just want to see what Fox is saying.
Yes.
So that's CNN is a huge disappointment because it embraces the sorts of views I have to the exclusion of all others. What good is that for me?
Absolutely not. It's almost lazy journalism where you don't feel like you really need to articulate the issues in a way that you show that you've taken into account the other side's view.
Now, there is something that interests me,
Right.
which is Spectator TV, which features Andrew Neil.
Yeah.
And it goes out 6 o'clock on a Thursday on YouTube, and you can catch it up later.
Yeah.
Now, actually, some of the stuff it did on Meghan Markle to me was unacceptable.
Yeah.
But on the whole, its coverage of UK politics has been impeccable.
Yeah.
The discussions they've had with Katie Balls, I can't remember the other guy, Forsyth. It's on that program, you get high-level discussion. Mm-hmm. And we know that Andrew Neil comes from a right-wing perspective. But when he's doing that program, he's a journalist exploring things. And that is a terrific current affairs show, except when it gets into a culture wars issue, where it's unbalanced. But it's very well informed on UK politics. The reporting is very good. And that's extraordinary. And I think if there was New Statesman TV, it probably wouldn't be much different.
Right. Do you think the New Statesman could create an impartial channel that looks at issues?
Well, no one would say that Andrew Neil's program was impartial. It's just that's the way, it is well informed on politics. It's not a propaganda machine. And I think even if you read Stephen Bush, who's very good, New Statesman, and the team on the new, because I can't remember the names. There's a woman, Alibi Ray or something. There's a lot of good people. The commentaries are very interesting. So I don't think that they're ideologically driven periodicals, except at the fringes sometimes.
Right. It's funny you say that, because in 2018, I wrote an article for Media Diversity Institute that was saying that the left really needs to prioritize diversity of thought, because if they don't do that, it will just lead to distrust that, once viewers distrust an institution, winning back trust is really difficult.
Yes, well, I'm with you, but I don't like, and the thing is, the trouble with diversity of thought is it's often been used as an alternative to diversity of employment and diversity of representation, where you need all things going at once.
Yeah, but isn't that what inclusivity is? Can you tell people the difference with that? Because in the culture wars, what happens is you say diversity, and then it's made to, the way it's played on different forums is either you're for one ethnic group, it's not inclusive of every strand and everybody. But isn't that what diversity is supposed to be?
Well, that's a complex question.
Right.
I am interested in diversity.
Okay.
But I focus on Black and minority ethnic representation.
Okay.
I've not become much involved in women's representation, although I've been involved with people who've run other organizations, and I've given the benefit of my knowledge about lobbying and how politics works. But I am a fairly single focus. So yes, all these things need to be taken together. Intersectionality is important, but it's very hard to address all these things at the same time, I think.
And so do you think then the strategy should be that there should be a voice or a body that looks at each strand and works to improve representation in each strand? Is that the best way?
Well, people need to address each strand. If you take Ofcom, it has an obligation to address each strand. So there you have a body. Now, whether it does it adequately or not, we could discuss forever. But, you have a body that addresses each strand. Big organizations should be addressing each strand.
But
probably each strand needs its own champion. You need somebody focused on disability, somebody focused on women's issues, somebody focused on ethnic issues, someone focused on class issues.
Right. And so you don't think there can be one champion, or you don't think the organization can address it? Because I think
there's two things here.
Right.
Some organizations have to address all these issues.
Right.
But I think it's hard to be, but this is just my instinct, it's hard to be championing them all.
Right.
As an individual. So I think they all need their own champions, but there are organizations who are required to address these issues.
What do you say to the critics who say that actually this is having a champion for minority ethnic groups is perpetuating racism?
No, that's just, I have nothing to say. I think that's laughable. People who are underrepresented,
right,
deserve better representation. These are objective things. You look at the measure, and if people are underrepresented, they should be better represented. And if there's a champion for better representation of women, better representation of disabled people, better representation of ethnic minorities, until these people are fairly dealt with, equally, fairly represented, we need champions.